Hello everyone. Just want to make a video for today about what iPad a college student should buy if they're going into college, like say the first year of college or they're already in college. I just graduated myself recently, so I just wanted to give some advice to those who are thinking about purchasing an iPad or on the fence of buying one. The iPad lineup appeals to many people, and I just want to walk you through on a purchasing decision, see which one would be a good fit for you. So let's go through the list here. So starting off, this is the cheapest one Apple sells, just the iPad, the 8th generation as of right now. And it starts at $329. And what you get for this iPad is a 10.2-inch Retina display. You get the A12 Bionic chip, the usual Lightning connector, and it's compatible with the first generation Apple Pencil. So for this, honestly, a really solid choice for most people to buy. If you're a casual media, maybe you're just looking for a simple media consumption device to watch, this is a really good buy for those. Just maybe for like your grandparents or your parents, anyone who doesn't really care, just give them an iPad. Especially if they do just streaming, the 32 gigabyte model will be perfectly fine if you have iCloud and you do a lot of streaming off of it. However, as a student, me personally, a quick backstory here. So when I went to college, I would say freshman year, I had this iPad mini 2 that was gifted to me by my father back in high school. Back in high school. And I loved that iPad mini. It was compact, it was small, it was great for media consumption, and you could read books for it. That's what I used the iPad mini 2 for. Granted, I'm talking about the regular iPad, but we'll get into it shortly. But that's what I used the iPad mini for. And then around my junior year of college, I wanted a bigger screen. I wanted to do digital note taking instead of carrying around a bunch of binders and notebooks. So I bought the 7th generation iPad. And honestly, if you kit this thing out, get like the Apple Pencil, get the keyboard, it is a really versatile device. I love my experience on that 7th generation iPad. Granted, it's the 8th generation, but all it is a spec bump. You get the A12 processor instead of the A10, which should last you a lot longer. Recommendation though, definitely get the 128 gigabyte model, because 32 gigabytes, especially for note taking, because I downloaded quite a few apps. I downloaded Procreate, I downloaded all the Microsoft apps. It eats up memory quick, especially when I downloaded Notability and GoodNotes for note taking. If you're only just taking notes, that's all you're doing, you're not doing anything else, maybe like download YouTube, then you should be okay for 32 gigabytes. I think honestly, for this price, they should have at least given you 64. 32 is just really stingy. So I would say go for the 128 gigabyte. If anything, if you're trying to be cost effective, I think this is the right choice for most college students. It's granted, it's $100 more, but you can get a student discount on the Apple website, so you save a little bit of money. Plus, usually the 8th generation iPad goes on sale a lot. I remember I picked up my 7th generation iPad for $250, I believe, which was an attractive price point. Even though it's 32 gigabytes, I ended up regretting the storage there. But anyways, if you could find a sale on this, definitely bump up to the 128 gigabyte model. Get the Apple Pencil. Even if you can't afford the Apple Pencil, there's plenty of third-party styluses on Amazon you can buy. And even if you can't buy the smart keyboard, which I would recommend, I actually didn't enjoy the typing experience of it, but it's actually a really good accessory. If you add a case, like this case, for example, I'm going to show right now, you add that case, it holds the pencil, and you got a spot for the keyboard. It's a neat little package. I definitely recommend that. So if you're looking to save as much money as possible, you're trying to be budget, definitely go for the 8th generation iPad, 128 gigabytes if you can't afford it. Get a student discount. But yeah, that's what I would recommend for most people. College students who are looking to save money, you already have a laptop, you just want to take it just strictly for note taking, maybe you want to do a little bit more, I would recommend the smart keyboard or even the Logitech Combo Touch, which gives you a trackpad. So you have options for the 8th generation iPad. The pencil, I think, is an essential accessory. The pencil is great on the iPad. All right, so next we're going to move on to the iPad mini, which is funny because even though it's a smaller device, it costs $400 versus the basic iPad that's $330. Now, before the 8th generation iPad came out, the mini had an argument because they had the A12 Bionic where that had the A10. However, Now that the 8th generation iPad out, I wouldn't see why you would buy the mini. I mean, sure, it has a laminated screen. It comes with 64 gigabytes. However, you get a smaller 7.9-inch display. It hasn't been updated in quite a while. So the mini, I mean, you get Apple Pencil support. However, you don't get support for a keyboard, which, yeah, it's a touchscreen device, but I've honestly found a keyboard really useful on an iPad when I just want to do some quick typing, some browsing on the web. The niche user who really wants a compact, small tablet, there's been rumors online saying that Apple may release like some sort of a iPad Pro mini or a mini that looks like the iPad Pro. I would wait for that one, honestly. The mini right now, maybe if you could find like a pretty good deal on it, sure. I mean, I do love the form factor of the mini. I have used that one myself for a while. I did use that form factor all of high school in my first 2 years of college, so I can understand the appeal of it. But if you want a tablet that's small, I would say hold out, see what happens in the fall, then make a purchasing decision. But that's just me again, personally. I would say the iPad mini isn't a good buy right now for college students, especially with the screen size. At least with the 8th generation iPad, the screen is big enough to where you could take some notes on it. The iPad mini, you could take notes on it, yes, with the pencil, but the screen's too small to be really efficient with it. Next up on the list is the 2020 iPad Air. Now, this is a really compelling device, in my opinion. So, for those who want the iPad Pro, but don't want to pay the Pro price, this is a nice little package here. You get a 10.9-inch display, which it is an inch smaller than the 11-inch iPad Pro, but it's still, you won't notice it. I've actually seen a demo unit of an iPad Air, so you're not going to notice it at first glance unless you're comparing it. It looks absolutely great. You get the A14 Bionic chip, which is actually the first Apple device to debut this chip. USB-C, which that's huge, especially if you have like a Mac or any laptop, because a lot of students, need a laptop for their work. With a USB-C connector, that's handy. The USB-C port alone, like I would say, is one of the factors why I would recommend the iPad Air over the iPad 8th generation. It also has compatibility with the 2nd generation Apple Pencil, which is a superior overall stylus to the 1st gen. The 1st gen is great, but the 2nd gen, because you could magnetically attach it and it has a matte coating to it, makes it worth it. Now, a lot of YouTubers like to knock the 1st gen Apple Pencil because you stick on the side. I never used it like that. I always used the connector, the little connector they gave you. I don't know why you would stick it on the side of the iPad. The case I had with the 7th gen negated that whole charging situation. Another pro with buying the iPad Air is that you get all these nice colors. You get sky blue, rose gold, and space gray and silver. The sky blue, if they offered it to the Pro, I would get a blue because the sky blue looks really nice, even though in some pictures it looks kind of silverish. Before the new M1 iPad Pro came out, there was an argument to be made whether the iPad Air was more powerful than the Pro, the 2020 iPad Pro with the A12Z processor, because it's certain in single core. I'm not like super knowledgeable when it comes to benchmark scores. However, I do know that the iPad Air just in everyday tasks was slightly faster than the Pro. However, that's not the case anymore. I think this is the iPad, if you can afford it, because it is quite a price bump up. I do wish it started at the $500 price point the previous gen iPad Air started at. However, if you go on the Apple website and you apply a student discount, you can get it down to $550. So if you look at it that way, it's only a $50 upgrade. Granted, once you start upgrading storage, it's not so much of a good value. The iPad Air, I think, is a good value at the 64 gigabyte model. It's a decent amount of storage. It's just right for a college student if you're just taking notes with it. However, you don't really need the iPad Air. The reason why you would want this is for a little bit more processing power, so it future-proofs you, and because it looks really nice, like a thin industrial look of the iPad Pro. So if you're on the fence of buying an Air, I would say go for the 128 gigabyte 8th generation iPad because you get more storage and more bang for your buck for that. However, if you could swing that money, I think this is the iPad most college students should go for. You have the option of getting the Magic Keyboard, which personally, I don't use the Magic Keyboard. simply because of the material Apple uses on their cases. Like if they use like some sort of robust material like a leather, something that doesn't require a skin to improve, I would recommend. First party accessories always work best with the product. However, a lot of people love their Magic Keyboard, so you do have the option of buying the Magic Keyboard for the iPad Air. The second gen Apple Pencil support, and the USB-C. That alone makes the iPad Air worth it. Those features and the upgraded processor, the iPad Air is a really good buy, which is surprising because the previous gen, the iPad Air 3, it was a really weird spot. However, I do think it could have been priced, if it was priced at $500, I think that would be an instant buy for everyone. So that's probably why Apple raised it to $600, so that way it keeps it competitive with the iPad Pro. Because once you start upgrading the storage to 256, it's only $50 away from the 11-inch iPad Pro. At that point, you might as well go for the Pro. So they did this strategically. They didn't give you a 128 gigabyte option, because to me it's like the iPhone XR / iPhone 11 of the iPad lineup. It gives you most of the features that you would want in a Pro, but you're not paying the Pro price. However, an alternative purchasing decision I would recommend a refurbished 2018 iPad Pro, because last time I checked, Amazon, you can get a 64 gigabyte iPad Pro for $550 to $600 roughly. Granted, the Air does have a newer processor, but I would go for that 2018 11-inch iPad Pro if it were me, choosing between two. Now, they both have the same amount of RAM, 4 gigabytes of RAM, so RAM's not really a factor in the equation. But you get the 120 hertz display, which is silky smooth. Once you get to experience it, it's kind of hard to go back. Granted, for phones, I don't mind 60 hertz, but 120 hertz, the ProMotion display, is fantastic on a large screen. So that's an alternative purchasing decision. However, if you want to go for the newest tablet, the Air gets my recommendation. The iPad Air, when you start speccing out to 256 gigabyte, is no longer a good value in my opinion. So I would stay away. If you're set on just getting the 64 gigabyte model, then it's good value. So finally, the most recent announcement, the new M1 iPad Pro. We get the 11-inch and the 12.9 inch. However, one key difference this year is that the 12.9 inch gets a mini LED display. The first time they've ever done this on iPad. The 11-inch is just the standard liquid retina display, which looks fantastic. You get the M1 chip from the Max, USB-C. However, it does support Thunderbolt, which I don't have much experience with Thunderbolt, so I can't really comment on that. However, a lot of tech reviewers have said that that's a useful port. You get 5G if you use your tablet a lot. I mean, I don't use it outside of Wi-Fi. I'm generally around an area where I can use Wi-Fi, so the 5G isn't a factor to me. Besides, I don't think that's exactly budget friendly for a lot of college students. And you get access to Apple Pencil Generation 2 and Magic Keyboard. Now, at the time we're speaking, I'm getting my new M1 iPad Pro. Here's the thing. This is the first time they've done 8 gigabytes of RAM on iPad, because my current 2018 iPad Pro has 4 gigabytes, whereas the new one has 8 gigabytes. I would say most people who have an iPad Pro, even if you have the 10.5-inch iPad Pro, unless you're like a user who likes to video edit and do a lot of design work and use your iPad a lot, I would say hold off a little bit more, because I don't think for the general consumer, if they already have an iPad Pro, they shouldn't upgrade to this M1 chip, because they have yet to announce software that will take advantage of this processor. I'm getting it personally because based on what I saw, LumaFusion is getting some performance bumps from the new M1 chip, so I'm excited to utilize that, especially to get these videos out to everyone listening here. Someone like me would be able to take advantage of the M1, and it future-proofs the device. However, that's its biggest competition, is the 2018/2020 iPad Pro of previous years. Granted, the 2021 just going on sale. However, I think in like a year or two, it depends how long, it's going to go down to the same price as the 2018 model. I think that's a sweet spot if you're just getting a general tablet in the $550 to $600 price point. That thing should be plenty fast. The only reason why I'm upgrading is because I'm noticing some slowdown LumaFusion. It tends to crash loading a lot of graphics onto it. The general user should be perfectly fine on a 2018 iPad Pro, the 11-inch. Here's the problem with the M1 12.9-inch iPad Pro. It got a price increase, which understandably so for the screen technology. However, at $1,100, you're now competing with your M1 MacBooks, and it could do a lot more. Granted, if you want a touchscreen and touch input and you like the iPad experience, then go for it. However, it also did get a weight increase, so you add a 1.5 pound tablet plus the keyboard, it weighs more than a MacBook Air. So even as a laptop replacement, I would say, even though I'm not a Mac user myself, I use Windows, you would just be better off getting a MacBook Air, especially the Mac Mini, which that looks like a really compelling price point. You can get the base model. You can get that with student discount for college students out there with 8 gigabytes of memory, which is all you need as a college student, 256 gigabytes of storage, and it goes for $650 before tax. Like, why would you go with the... Granted, that is a desktop. Like, you just hook it up to any setup that you have if you have a screen or monitor or keyboard. Or you can get the M1 MacBook Air, which depending where you get it from, you get it for $850 to $900 with either the education discount or even the refurbished store, which I would recommend the Apple refurbished store. It's basically brand new products, just the components are used, which no one touches those. So you're basically getting a brand new product from Apple themselves, but for less money, and you still get Apple Care. So for most people who are looking towards the the bigger size iPad Pro as a potential laptop replacement, I think you're better off either getting a Mac Mini or a MacBook Air. The 12.9 inch is the size of a sheet of paper. So if you're doing a lot of note taking and multitasking, then as a college student, I would say try to spring for the 2018 model because you get the big screen. However, you don't have to pay like upwards of $1,000. So I would say go for earlier models of the 12.9 inch iPad Pro if you want something that's the same size as a sheet of paper. Keep in mind though, if you already have a laptop, that's going to be heavy to lug around because the iPad 12.9 inch is heavier than 11 inch. First of all, I recommend going the student discount route again if you're serious about getting the new M1 iPad Pro. You just don't need that kind of power unless you're doing video editing, graphic design, or if you can really take advantage of the capabilities of the new chip. People who are just taking notes, doing web browsing, maybe typing up papers, you'd be perfectly fine as a college student, iPad Pro 2018, or even the 2020 model. So overall, in this lineup, my two recommendations would be the 8th generation iPad, the iPad Air, or if you want the 120 hertz screen, get a refurbished 2018 iPad Pro. That's what I recommend for college students. Thank you everyone for watching today. I hope this helps some potential college students or students attending college right now. I hope this helps you with a purchasing decision. Feel free to comment below so I can answer some questions, give some advice. Stay tuned for the next podcast with me and Julian. We're going to try to get that out to you by the end of this Saturday. Thank you for being very patient with us. It's been very busy, especially with school, so he's got a lot of work on his plate. And thanks again for watching.